Man, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of EOS. It's 1090 Jake, man. I'm rocking with y'all and y'all rocking with me. And for this video, we're going to be speaking on the 18-year-old teen down in Florida that's been charged with killing a police officer. And not only that, this case is taking a major turn after his 17-year-old sister was so very vocal on the news in defending her brother, proclaiming his innocence.
Why are you being so hard for? He's a kid. I'm gonna talk for my brother because I know my brother has nothing to do with whatever happened.
And now she's been arrested and allegedly supplied the gun. October 17th, 2021. It was just before 10:30 at night when officers in Hollywood, Florida were dispatched after reports of a suspicious white male riding a bicycle, going house to house and attempting to open vehicle doors. Video surveillance was obtained by the caller showing a suspect in a blue hoodie and dark pants riding a red bike with a front basket. His description was then issued as a bolo alert, a be on the lookout, to responding units. It was now 10:52 at night, roughly 20 minutes since the initial call, when Officer Chirino made contact with the suspect less than a half-mile away from the reported area he was first spotted. Dispatch records revealed Officer Chirino was in a physical struggle with the suspect and was unable to provide his exact location. 2 minutes later, another officer arrived on scene, finding Chirino and the suspect in the grass as Chirino tried to wrestle away the handgun the suspect was holding. The second officer ran up and kicked the suspect, knocking the gun out of his hand as he joined in on the fight, and the suspect violently resisted his attempts to place him in custody. Eventually, he was handcuffed, and it was at that moment the second officer saw Chirino laying unconscious and unresponsive with a gunshot to his face. He immediately began performing CPR as another officer arrived on scene, placing Chirino in a police vehicle and rushing him to the hospital while continuing CPR. The bullet had entered the left side of his head, in between his ear and his jaw, and at 1:11 in the morning, 28-year-old Officer Yancey Chirino was pronounced dead. Back at the scene, there was a red bike, a blue hoodie, sneakers, and a large pool of blood. A Glock 43X 9mm handgun was located just east of the bodily fluids left behind, and its serial number reported the gun as stolen from a vehicle burglary in Miami back in September of 2021. A detective was approached by a male witness at the Emerald Hills Country Club right by the scene of the crime. The witness said his Jeep had broke down, he'd heard 2 gunshots, and he was with the suspect prior to the shooting. The witness was then transported to the Hollywood Police Department where he provided a video recorded statement. He identified the shooting suspect as 18-year-old Jason Benegas, his girlfriend's brother. They were riding home in the witness's Jeep when it broke down. Detectives asked him what the suspect was wearing at the time, as the witness described the same blue hoodie, jeans, and sneakers as reported by the 911 caller. The witness had pulled his Jeep in front of the Emerald Hills Country Club before calling a tow company when Jason left, and roughly 30 minutes went by before he'd come back, riding a red bicycle with a basket in the front. He'd leave again, riding off on the bike, before coming back with AirPods, an iPhone, and cash as he wrapped the items in a white shirt and placed it on a bench in front of the country club. Jason left a third time, riding off on the bike, and shortly after, 2 gunshots went off. When the witness found the detective, he saw the red bike, identifying it as the same one Jason had been riding. Detectives met with Jason in an interview room, and he gave the same story about the Jeep breaking down, parking by the country club, and went on to say when he left, he saw a red bike in a carport with a vehicle parked. He stole the bike, riding it back to the country club before going car hopping, a term used in Florida for breaking into cars. He admitted to trying to open and unlock approximately 8 different vehicles, 3 of which he was able to get into and steal whatever he could find. Officers were able to later recover the stolen property he'd wrapped in a white t-shirt, confirming statements given by the suspect and witness to be accurate. As he rode off again on the bike, scouting for new vehicles to break into, he was stopped by an officer. He tried to pedal the bike, but the officer grabbed him, and Jason said the officer was disrespecting him, so he panicked. Because the whole time he'd been stealing from cars, he'd been carrying a gun and didn't want to go back to jail as he'd just been released a month ago. Jason said he started fighting with the officer, pushing him as the officer tried to place him on the ground. The officer was commanding him to stop resisting as they stood wrestling into the grass when the officer threw a punch, dropping Jason to the ground as the officer quickly mounted him. Jason noticed headlights approaching, assumed another cop was coming, and pulled a gun out of his front right pocket. He said the officer never knew he had a gun and didn't even know it was in his hand. He told detectives he wanted to kill himself and was trying to, but the officer wouldn't stop wrestling him. When he thought the officer was clear of the muzzle, he pulled the trigger, and the bullet he claimed was meant for him traveled into the side of Officer Chirino's face, forcing its way into his brain. Seen on video, identified by his sister's boyfriend, and further identified by two witnesses who saw him riding the stolen bike, Jason Benegas became known throughout the state of Florida overnight as the news spread of the 18-year-old cop killer. His criminal history would show he'd been in and out of custody his entire teenage years, with his first juvenile arrest at 12 years old for resisting an officer without violence, and in the years that followed, he'd show a pattern of committing burglaries, damaging property, and grand theft auto. In 2020 alone, he'd faced charges of burglary, trespassing, marijuana possession, cocaine possession with intent to sell, and selling cocaine near a school. Jason's sister would speak with the local news, defending her brother's innocence, and possibly without realizing, her boyfriend and her brother already gave statements with their brother admitting to firing the gun.
It makes no sense to me.
Okay. Was he known to hang around in that area? Because
No. I'm gonna talk for my brother because I know my brother has nothing to do with whatever happened. My brother's innocent.
What comes as a surprise is Jason's sister Catherine, who let it be known she's defending her brother, has now been tied into the investigation and was arrested by U.S. Marshals. It turns out the Glock 43X was stolen out of Miami, and the victim reported it being stolen by two women. The victim was shown a photo lineup, and even more conveniently, the victim was shown the news report where Catherine can be seen defending her brother. It was then the victim was able to positively identify 17-year-old Catherine as one of the two females who stole his gun. She remains in a Broward County juvenile facility pending transfer to Miami-Dade, and law enforcement believe it was her that supplied her brother with the gun that took the life of the 28-year-old officer. If she remains in juvenile court, her potential punishment won't compare to the possible execution her 18-year-old brother may face, as he's charged with firearm offenses, armed burglary, which carries a max sentence of life in prison, and first-degree premeditated murder, punishable by death. Now, I'm gonna say it if nobody else has already in the comments section. We see a lot of stories of family members. That's my baby, he didn't do it, he's an angel, This is the first story where I've heard a family member defending their family member, and then they get arrested because they had something to do with the case. Literally, if you stayed off the fucking news, it would have been that much harder to solve this. There's still a possibility they could have, but I mean, you literally just showed yourself to everybody defending a kid whose criminal history is long as shit. You said he couldn't have done this, but he literally admitted to every aspect of it. And then your boyfriend also told and snitched on the entire thing, right? People are like, how's he a snitch if he wasn't committing a crime? Stop trying to change the definition of a snitch to make yourself feel better. If you're telling, you're fucking telling. And if you're telling, you're a snitch. It is what the fuck it is, right? But the boyfriend snitched, she's saying he didn't do it, and then come to find out, you allegedly stole a gun, supplied him with the fucking gun, and he smoked the cop. And the fact that, 18 years old, he thinks that his defense of I tried to commit suicide is gonna work, you still have that opportunity. You could handle that in jail if you're suicidal. And they're gonna take that into consideration. Are you suicidal now? Are you in a turtle suit? Are you know what I mean? Is he in the psych part of the fucking jail? Like, where is he being held? Is he on suicide watch? If he's not showing signs of wanting to commit suicide, that defense is most likely gonna fall apart. And if you don't wanna make it to trial, you might actually have to go through with the fucking shit. Because at the end of the day, you killed a Florida cop. They're not gonna play. They're gonna do everything in their power to hit this kid with the max. And if he's able to avoid death, which I think he should, I don't think this was a premeditated murder. I don't think he planned it. I think in the action of wrestling with the officer, he pulled out a gun and he shot him. That's not a premeditated murder. That's a second-degree murder. What do you want to give him? Life? You want to give him a couple life sentences? Whatever it is, this kid's gonna get fucked. And as far as the younger sister, if she stays in juvenile court, it won't be that bad. But if they put her up in adult court, she could possibly be going to prison too. But it just goes to show, if you're from Florida and you can relate to car hopping as a teenager, I know I've done it. I know other people have done it. It's like some teenage bullshit. You're in a mall parking lot, whose car's unlocked. Oh, let's see if there's anything. It's more of a rush than it is actually trying to get money. You really don't get shit from it. But this goes to show you how fast something serious can come from something so fucking stupid. And how an immature decision based on just boredom can cost you the rest of your life and cost somebody else theirs. But let me know what y'all think in the comment section. It's 1090 Jake. I'm rocking with Charlie, y'all rocking with me. Until next time.